I wouldn't be surprised if this rankings video was the shortest of the 6 wives, because let's face it, Anna had the shortest reign, and what we care about the most is how crappy it was to be married to Henry VIII for longer than 6 months. Anna of Cleves still gets the shaft regardless, and sometimes there is so little to base a story off of that we tend to just make stuff up. Otherwise, the alternative is just kind of ignoring her or letting her be in the background for a few seconds and then get rid of her faster than Henry did. And remember guys, if the character is mentioned but doesn't actually appear, it doesn't count, because we need an actress for this person to be incarnated. For example, in Young Bess, Anna does appear as an off-screen voice, but I could not tell you which actress that voice belongs to if I tried. In the upcoming Stars show about young Elizabeth I, we're getting Catherine Parr, but there is no sign of Anna. And yeah, I know I draw a line at including parodies, but since Anna has so few on-screen counterparts, and this here is my honourable mention for her 5-second cameo in the Simpsons episode Father Knows Worst.
That's terrible advice.
Anne of Cleves!
What you do for your son, he'll never learn to do for himself.
Hello, Tetley. I'm sorry guys, they decided that if I'm going to record, they want to be in on it too. Yes, Tetley, you want to be in on the recording too, don't you? It's going to be hard to find a fully accurate Anna of Cleves on this comparably short list, but this is the point where we have to consider if we can forgive inaccuracies as long as the character stands on their own and the production isn't banking on you already knowing the history. No more stalling, let's see what's in store.
Anne of Cleves outlived all the wives. Widely liked and respected, she was buried rich and popular with full honours.
Does this even count? Seriously, I'm not joking. Does this even count? I know this show wanted to get to Catherine Howard as soon as possible, but they didn't have to be so blunt about it. See what I did there? This Anna doesn't have a line. Not a single line. Right, we'll cover the build-up and negotiations with each one because they're just as important, and if I don't, I'm not left with much else to cover. I noticed they kept referring to Anna as Protestant, which doesn't seem like that much of a big deal on a surface level, but much like putting Anne Boleyn in a dungeon, it reveals to the more historically literate how careless the research was. Yes, Anna was raised in a court that was sympathetic to Protestants, but Anna was more likely to have been Catholic because she would have been influenced by her devoutly Catholic mother. The same goes for her portrait. All you needed was a medallion with a photocopy of the actual portrait. It isn't that hard. And then the meeting happens. This is the worst method of storytelling. Henry goes to meet Anna, then in the next scene it cuts to after they met. That's right, Anna and Henry never actually meet on screen. And I don't know why. If you didn't have time, make time. Just have this be a trilogy, have an extra 10 minutes. Unless it was like in Game of Thrones where Lena Headey and Jerome Flynn couldn't be in the same scene. Did Pia and Ray have a bad relationship that we don't know about? Is that why we don't see them together? I don't understand. I just don't get it. And once again, this version of Henry doesn't give a crap about diplomacy and doesn't even act as though he has every intention to commit to the marriage and outwardly refuses to go to bed with her, even though this public disparaging of his new wife will endanger his alliance with KLEVE, and that's just going to put more fuel on the fire for him. Look, I'm not the biggest fan of Henry VIII, but he was so much more complex than this shouty, grumpy, fat bitch. But this series couldn't recognise complexity if it smacked them in the face. I'd forgotten about Anna because of the stupidity of the Catherine Howard arc, so when she appears in the epilogue, I was like, who dis? And then the narrator explained it, and I don't know who this is. We'll get on to that narrator in the Catherine Parr one, because I hate this narrator. And as soon as she comes back, she's off screen again. Thanks, I hate it.
My estate?
Madam. Welcome to England, madam.
In an otherwise pretty damn good movie, they should have looked at this part and asked themselves if they could have squeezed in just 10 to 15 more minutes, because Anna's portrayal is so mediocre compared with her television predecessor. So the build-up is pretty okay. It's just the introduction to Anna and the less than pleasant scene afterwards that I object to. They don't have time to have Henry make a fool of himself in front of her, so they dumb it down and settle for Anna actually being ugly, with smallpox scars on her cheeks that an acne-ridden teenager would think is a bit much. It is true that Anna wouldn't have known much English and likely wouldn't be able to fully communicate with Henry, so the meeting is awkward enough, but at least Henry is trying to appear civil so he doesn't endanger this new alliance. The only other scene with Anna is the bedding ceremony, which doubles down on her being so hideous compared with her portrait, where her blonde hair is actually a wig and her teeth look awful. I mean, not that Henry is much of an oil painting himself, but this unfairly strips Anna down to one simple trait and can't get rid of her quickly enough.
Boring!
Was?
I said I love you very much.
Oh, ich liebe sie auch.
I do love Horrible Histories. The books are great and the show was great too. Keyword was. Back when it was done with a handful of funny actors who enjoyed what they were doing and had great chemistry, not an excuse for humourless minor British celebrities to gain a quick quid. That's right, I'm throwing shade at the Rotten Romans movie. It sucks. And then they took the first 5 seasons off Netflix, so you tried to sit through season 6. It's absolutely god-awful. I can't tolerate the fucking thing. I'm sorry to swear. I know there's some of my subscribers that don't like me swearing, but seriously, Horrible Histories after season 5 is bloody awful. Do not watch it. Watch Ghosts. Watch the William Shakespeare movie that they all did together. Those are so much better. After the original run, there were a handful of other sketches, and this is where this incarnation comes in. Horrible Histories likes teaching history by talking to its young target audience on their level, while also being appealing to adults, and it does parodies of popular shows that one would sit and watch at weekends. So this sketch is a parody of a dating show, which also parallels how Henry and Anna didn't get off to the best start, squeezing in how Henry had had a portrait commissioned of Anna and he was in love with the portrait. Meanwhile, Anna is feeling really awkward and unable to communicate with Henry. Of course, Ben Willibon's Henry VIII steals the show, playing up Henry's massive ego. I don't hate this sketch, I just thought it was a bit boring. Horrible Histories is good, but it isn't subtle. So we can't have Henry having his ego bruised by Anna not getting his fandom reference. I'm not saying the audience is stupid, it's just that doing something that would embarrass him so clearly, it's a bit more subtle than that. It was never as simple as, oh my god, she looks like a horse, I gotta get rid of her. It was, Henry had a bruised ego, he felt utterly humiliated, and he wanted to get rid of the source of that humiliation, and he projected all of his anger onto her. Anna herself is a little undersold. Why not interview her with English subtitles? Or have her suddenly speak English and say she knew what Henry was saying all along? That feels like more of a punchline that would come out of Horrible Histories.
Lady Brian. Yes, Your Majesty. If I cannot please the king, will he kill me?
This was surprising. I'll be honest, I was a bit of a fan of Joss Stone before the Tudors, as a result of long car journeys with one of her CDs on constant replay. I didn't know she transfers so well into acting, especially with a German accent, because those are very hard to do seriously. I did enjoy that this version of Anna had a lot more time for her to develop, from her first appearance to her abrupt exit in season 4. We'll get to that. The showrunners clearly planned to have Anna be revealed when Henry meets her, having her wear a veil whenever she's on screen before now. There's also a deleted scene where she's talking with Holbein, but they keep her out of focus. But then, someone had the bright idea to put her in the opening credits, face reveal and all. Why? I was watching this on DVD. This was first broadcast on television. This was long before you could switch on an episode and skip the intro, thereby conserve the reveal. You're kind of ruining the reveal by putting her in the opening credits of her first 2 episodes.
Boy, I really hope somebody got fired for that blunder.
And I'll admit, this really flubbed the introduction. We go with Henry being repulsed by Anna because of her appearance alone. But what's wrong with Joss Stone? She's not ugly. She certainly doesn't look like a horse. Perhaps if the 3rd season had a 10-episode run, like the other 3 seasons, this wouldn't have happened. Either that, or there was just some clause written into Jonathan Rhys-Meyers' contract that Henry wasn't allowed to get fat, Henry wasn't allowed to look stupid, and he wasn't allowed to humiliate himself. I guess I don't know whose ego got in the way there. There's not much to go on for featuring Anna's short reign, although they include a brief subplot where she attempts playing matchmaker with Lady Mary and Philip of Bavaria. Even though Anna didn't play a hand in this in real life because Philip of Bavaria came to court a year beforehand, it at least allows Mary to grow attached to Anna, which then leads into her future conflict with Catherine Howard. Anna is very introverted, which is understandable when you barely speak English and people are prodding you into confirming if you slept with your husband or not. Likewise, she feels utterly humiliated when Henry discards her and doesn't have the self-confidence to fight, so she simply lets it happen. But she does reveal that she's secretly angry at the way the king treats her, confiding to Cromwell in German that Henry's leg stinks and it is so hard to keep pretending that everything is all right. But when she appears in season 4, she's come out of her shell a lot since she doesn't have to be Henry's wife any longer. She strides into the court with all the confidence of a lady who's escaped a toxic relationship, to the point that she kind of overshadows Catherine Howard. Plus, I like that Anna spends time with the Lady Elizabeth, treating her like her own daughter. I just thought that was a very sweet touch. So yeah, I was very much surprised that Anna wasn't in more episodes. I thought she would be there until the end, and I would be like, finally, they didn't ignore her, but they do. Her final scene might spark some controversy, and while it does seem silly, it doesn't exactly come out of nowhere. While Henry is at Hever Castle with Anna, she frequently beats him in card matches, but that's okay, Henry's in a good mood. And Anna admits that she's so in love with life right now. Then Henry takes her hand and asks her to go to bed with him. Okay. There were rumours in real life that when Henry went to visit Anna at Hever Castle, he impregnated her, and that she had a stillborn child that she hid under the guise of being bedridden with a long illness. Of course, it's very unlikely that this happened, given how broadly admitted that he couldn't consummate his marriage with her. But the thing with the Tudors is, if the more extreme option is available, they'll go for it. I've been trying to imagine the justification for this for years. It could be Henry prefers women who are livelier and more talkative, and now Anna is more confident, he finds her more attractive than the nervous and shy woman he was introduced to. Or being at Hever Castle has reminded Henry of when he was infatuated with Anne Boleyn and wants to recapture that fantasy of his youth. Or Henry will never be happy with just one woman and will always cheat on his wife because he can't be satisfied. #Henry's gonna Henry. Or it's meant to play alongside Catherine Howard having an affair, reminding the audience that Henry isn't exactly innocent and will show himself a massive hypocrite in a few episodes' time. While we don't see the scene itself, thankfully, we see the aftermath, where Anna feels awkward about what they've just done. But after that, she's gone. We don't see her again for the rest of the series. Obviously, because she was still alive, we couldn't have a ghost scene, but it would have made the last episode a lot more meaningful if all 6 wives appeared in the same episode. I appreciate the attempt they made in the Tudors, but it was severely lacking at the end.
Oh, Heinrich.
Welcome to England. I fear you had a bad crossing.
Yes, the wind met the sea, met the trouble, and... Oh, excuse me.
You're pleased to accept my most humble apologies.
Oh, but it is not your fault for channel chopping.
If this version of Anna was played by any other actress, I doubt she'd have had so much space to move. I love this version. It was hilarious. Given it's been over a year since I last went to the theatre, seeing Charles Laughton and Elsa Lanchester act like the comical king and queen of a pantomime gave me so much nostalgia for going out to watching the show or working behind the scenes over the Christmas period. Elsa Lanchester and Charles Laughton were actually married in real life, so the two of them already have a lot of chemistry, and the two of them had already done a lot of projects together, and would go on to do more when Laughton broke out in Hollywood after this film. Turns out Elsa is also the OG Bride of Frankenstein. You know, if I had to choose between Frankenstein and Henry VIII, I think I'll marry the guy literally pieced together from corpses. And yes, I know Frankenstein was a doctor, person who jumped into the comments section before I was finished with my point. Elsa brings a lot of her comical personality to her performance, and she does it deliberately. This version of Anna doesn't want to marry Henry because of his reputation for disposing wives. She's far more interested in the courtier who came with Holbein to arrange the marriage, Thomas Paynell. I don't think he's a real person. By the time Anna is in England, the two of them have already fallen in love, and when the king is announced, Anna decides to deliberately appear ugly by scrunching up her face and acting strangely to confuse Henry. And the plan works. Henry and Anna literally break up on the wedding night as Henry realises her game and they part on good terms. So she gets to live out her life in luxury with her new boyfriend. It is also Anna who recommends Catherine Parr to Henry after Catherine Howard's death, showing how the two of them remain friends. I wish I could have seen more. I'm pretty sure the scene of them bickering on their wedding night was the inspiration for this scene in Carry On Henry.
I've done it!
You cheated.
I didn't, you saw.
They do refer to her as the Duchess of Cleves, which is clearly wrong, as Cleves was a kingdom in and of itself, and she simply was one of the princesses. It is interesting to see how a German is portrayed on screen nearly 20 years after the start of World War I, and only 6 years before another would begin. Remember, this movie came out in 1933. That was the same year that these guys came to power. And this is a German character who is given a mini character arc and a solid personality. And it was 4 years after talkies were introduced, so now people can hear dialogue in movies. Clearly the fastest way to a laugh is a funny accent. I noticed that when I first got Disney Plus and I watched all the animated movies, towards the beginning of their run, they used a lot of New Jersey accents on comical characters, because, you know, lol, they don't sound like me, that's hilarious. Yeah, Anna's a bit of a stereotype, but it's not an unkind stereotype. Charles and Elsa seem like such a sweet couple. Charles Lawton himself was bisexual and they had no children, but they were married for 33 years before Charles's premature death in 1962. He was only a few years older than Henry VIII himself when he died. But that's a subject for another list, when we're at 50,000 subscribers.
Been Anna of Cleves.
Yeah.
When he saw my portrait, he was like,
Yeah.
But I didn't look as good as I did in my pic. Funny how we all discussed that, but never Henry's little.
I have to say, this is one of my favourite interpretations of anything ever. Anna is very much the comic relief because she literally does not give a damn. She doesn't have a horse in this race, even if it can trot up to 12 miles an hour. And it's our last glimpse of unadulterated and innocent comedy before Catherine Howard's story takes a super dark turn. As we're at a halfway point in the score, we brush off the feels of Jane Seymour's song to be as silly as we can possibly be. As Henry is on the lookout for a new wife, the wives may as well play into the search by donning sunglasses and giant ruffs and thick German accents. Ladies and gentlemen, fluids and nonconformists, I give you the House of Holbein.
Welcome to the house.
To the House of Holbein.
Okay, that's as much as I can play without them Merlin people coming for me. I'm not one for watching reality TV, so I don't know if this is meant to parody Gokwan or RuPaul or both or neither. I don't care, it's still awesome. Henry, off stage and voiceless, selects his new bride via a dating app where he swipes left on Christina of Milan and Amelia of Cleves, before settling on Anna. And Anna is drenched in sarcasm during her proper intro. There's more sarcasm from her in less than 2 minutes than the whole of 90s grunge culture combined. Can you imagine the tragedy of being forced to live in a resplendent palace in Richmond with more money than you could ever spend in a lifetime? Not a single man around to tell you what to do with it. Honestly, it's just tragic. I have to say, Get Down is one of the best songs in the soundtrack. If you're a concerned parent and you don't want your children listening to Cardi B's WAP, you can put this on instead and it's perfectly harmless. The song is a hilarious combination of Nicki Minaj and Iggy Azalea, where Anna's bragging about her wealth and independence wouldn't be unfamiliar in one of their songs. But the difference here is that Anna's flexes all relate to pastimes and staples of wealth in the Tudor era. So instead of bragging about your car or your cat that fell in the bathtub, Anna lists her vast hunting grounds, her fast horses and her gold chains. Obviously, because Anna is the most overlooked wife out of the 6, Jane Seymour coming in a close second, it was obvious that Anna needed a standout song so she wouldn't be overlooked here. Neither the song nor the in-between dialogue reference Anna's later monetary troubles after Henry's death, But seeing as the musical is in relation to the wife's relationship with Henry rather than their relationship with his children, I'll let that slide. After the song, the rest of the queens can't rationalise how Anna's situation was at all bad, to which Anna realises they're right, shrugs and says, well, back to the palace, effectively removing herself from the competition, but does butt in every now and then to flex about how awesome her life is and helps Catherine Parr break up the fight near the end. Anna's outfit is pretty awesome. I like the jacket with the crop top and shorts resembling more of a hip-hop artist and clearly distinct from the other queens, as we always associate her real-life counterpart with the German dresses and headpieces. And the other queens have costumes with hints of fashions from the English or French court. And of course, at the very end, when the 6 queens choose an alternate future for themselves, Anna forms a group with her friends at the House of Holbein and goes on a tour of Prussia, which is a reference just about relevant to the song because Prussia was founded in 1525. You got lucky.
Did the milk ever curdle in the mouth of the popish babe? Did the corn ever grow higher because it was sown by a good Protestant?
God, madam, is merciful to the sinner in the hope of his amendment.
I would rather comfort a shamed child than save a dozen churches.
This episode feels so much more like a play than any of the other episodes. I remember the first time I saw this series was a collection of 10-minute segments on YouTube in 2010. Seriously, how many people on this website are old enough to remember when you could do that? You could watch whole sodding movies, not even obscure ones, actual popular ones that had only come out a few years ago. But now, like, you know how picky Disney and Fox are about their properties getting used. But back then, you could watch Star Wars on YouTube for free. But for one reason or another, I could never get the final segment of the Anna of Cleves episode to load, or buffer, or whatever. Our old internet connection was shite. So I couldn't get that last bit to load, so I moved on to Catherine Howard and thought I'd go back to Anna later, but by the time I did, there was a crackdown on this getting your movies and TV for free thing, and streaming started to become popular. So now, while you can still watch movies on YouTube for free, they're usually movies that weren't very successful or are just really, really old and in the public domain. Oh well, it was nice while it lasted. Since I last watched it, I realised how missing the fourth wall is. You didn't really notice it in the first few videos because the rooms were a lot smaller and some of the conversations took place in corridors. But since the second half of this episode primarily takes place in this giant room, it very much feels like a play being filmed as opposed to a low-budget TV episode. That's not a bad thing, mind. In fact, after so long without being able to sit in a theatre and spend an evening watching a play, I felt as though this episode took my hand, wrapped me in a blanket and told me I was in a safe space. And I also love this version of Anna of Cleves, even if a 24-year-old is being played by a then 40-year-old actress. Rather than the clueless and naive version that is often swept aside, Anna gets her own spotlight to show her as a cunning woman who is far smarter than she looks. Some of Anna's traits, like her regal public demeanour, her sharp wit and her gentleness, make it seem that she is a mix of the best characteristics of Henry's last 3 wives. This may not be completely accurate. When you're trying to expand such a short story as Anna's into an hour-and-a-half long episode, and the plans to dissolve Anna and Henry's marriage happened mainly without Anna's knowledge, she'd have nothing to do for her own episode. So instead, let's make Anna actually contribute to the divorce. This is the only version so far that has presented Anna and Henry's first meeting as it actually happened. How? How is this the only one? Afterwards, neither Henry nor Anna want this marriage to go ahead, and while Henry tries to instigate the nuptials on their wedding night, she's not having it. Then she tells him that the League of Protestants that Henry is meant to be allied with won't last long, and with the French and Imperial Treaty also fracturing, their marriage will be ultimately pointless. But Anna points out their marriage isn't consummated, so they decide to play the waiting game and see how things pan out. And if they haven't consummated the marriage and Henry will be free to marry again, perfectly fine with her. She doesn't have to sleep with him, thank God. The rest of the episode is this long scene building up to Anna and Henry's break. But really, it's a chance for Wolfe Morris to get all the sweet, sweet charisma he can as Thomas Cromwell, because this is the last episode that he's in. I can hardly believe he's only in 3 episodes. You've probably seen my One Villainous Scene video, but he is on a god tier when it comes to Cromwells. But it doesn't mean Anna is totally ignored, as she is at the centre of every character's arc and conversation. After characters coming in and out, and shaking it all about, Anna and Henry settle down for dinner. Catherine Howard is mentioned several times, but you never see her. Regardless, it is made clear that Henry has got his eyes on Anna's young lady in waiting. Anna is weighing her prospects as Henry falls asleep. She goes into the garden to be alone with her thoughts, where Cranmer is waiting for her to tell her that Henry's fist is closing around the Protestant faction at court. Cranmer himself has barely been able to avoid persecution because he's always been on Henry's good side and has forced himself to sacrifice his allies so he can survive. He warns Anna that she has to survive. Anna puts on her brave face before going back to Henry and telling him that she'll leave him to marry Catherine Howard on the condition that he gives her an independent living and allows her to still see his children. Henry is simply relieved that he won't be spending years and years trying to get rid of her. The ending isn't happy or sad, but Anna has survived.
Marge, I'm confused. Is this a happy ending or a sad ending?
It's an ending, that's enough.
I know Anna of Cleves has the reputation of being the underwhelming wife. Why should I care about the one who got away when there's a massive sex scandal right round the corner? I'm not asking for hours and hours of a show dedicated to Anna with more filler than the extended edition of the Hobbit trilogy. I just want to see her story from beginning to end. I want people to have fun with their characters, not see them as a burden. You don't have to be boring. There is always a way of making it interesting. Usually people won't mind if something is inaccurate if you can make your thing stand on its own and be entertaining at the same time. The Anna episode of The Six Wives of Henry VIII stands so well on its own that I would happily put on a nice dress and go to a press night of it being adapted on stage. We can cast someone like Saoirse Ronan or Florence Pugh as Anna of Cleves and broadcast it, tour with it. The Nottingham Playhouse has successfully done this twice with Mark Gatiss and Alex Kingston. I went to both of those, by the way. Get Mark Rylance to reprise his role as Thomas Cromwell. I don't know who you're going to get to play Henry, but maybe we can shove Damian Lewis in a fat suit. I don't know. We can do this, okay? There is room for drama with Anna of Cleves, so don't disregard her as insignificant. If there's one thing that watching 7 seasons of the Clone Wars, 4 seasons of Rebels, and the first season of The Bad Batch has taught me, it's that even the most minor of characters can have an interesting story to tell. And next time, I will give Anna the insight she deserves. Hey guys, thanks for watching another video. I'm really looking forward to what's coming up next. I've noticed in the subscriber count that we are nearly at 3,000 subscribers, so if the outcome of this video means at least 200 more subscribers, then looks like we're getting a 3K special. For the 3K special, we'll review this book here, Alison Weir's Anne Boleyn, A King's Obsession, because we reviewed the Catherine of Aragon book last time. And of course next one after that will be Jane Seymour, then Anna, and then Catherine again, and then I haven't read Catherine Parr yet, but we'll get there, won't we? Why is it sometimes you smell a paperback and all you can think of all those terrible Throne of Glass books? I don't know why. That's completely unrelated to what I'm talking about now. If you're looking forward to the next video about Anna von Cleves, please make sure you subscribe and make sure you hit the bell so you're fully notified, and as soon as a new video comes out, you'll know about it. And I express a deep thank you to all of my patrons who have been so dependable and patient over the past few months that we've been together. And here's a shout out to my VIP patron Anastasia Gracia. She's amazing. Like, by the way, does anyone get the reference with this necklace with 2 swans and German mythology or something? Or folklore, one of the two. Caption time! We're going to do a thing at the end of every rankings video where I find a frame while I'm editing the video and then I'll put it on a post and people can just make funny captions for the picture. So last time it was this random picture of Damian Lewis holding his hand out like that and Mark Rylance would be like, and then this time it's Jonathan Rhys-Meyers looking like a drunk dad, and Tamsin Merchant doing the epitome of "so we got married." Woo! That one uncle after making an offensive joke and now everyone is embarrassed but he thinks he's funny. Catherine trying to drink Henry under the table but she's passing out. He shrugs, "Yep, I knew it, better luck next time, kid." When I'm explaining my plan for world domination but my SO is like, "Babe, we're at a Wendy's." We don't have Wendy's over here. Like you Americans have so many different restaurant chains, but like we've got Pizza Express and maybe Pizza Hut and Nando's, and that's about it. Like when it comes to food chains over here, it's all coffee shops like Costa and Cafe Nero. I don't know, maybe I just don't get out much. Maybe I just prefer going to independent restaurants. Yeah, I'm not reading that one. It's a bit mean. Don't be mean to Tamsin Merchant. Like I can't say it because like, you know, we haven't had the rankings video yet, so I can't say this and have people think that that's my opinion because it isn't. So sorry, Shane, but I'll put it up, but I'm not reading it. She does charity work. I'm not going to throw shade on her. Catherine Howard choking and hiding her cringe at Henry's misogyny. Yeah. Maybe if I drink enough wine, Henry will actually look good to me. When we were dating, he thought my drinking was fun. When your dad is telling you what his childhood was like. Okay. Wanting your drunk friend to do that stupid/risky thing they insist on doing, but not wanting to be held accountable when it definitely backfires. You know, similar scene like that actually happens in Private Life of Henry VIII, during the Catherine Howard section, because like Henry gets jealous of the hot wrestlers, and so he takes his shirt off and starts wrestling, and you know it's kind of funny the way he's trying to make up for his fragile masculinity in 1933. When your King Bay is extolling your No, I didn't say that. When King Bay is extolling your virginal attributes, but you're hiding some Wolsey-side skeletons. I mean, how big was Wolsey really? We don't know. I mean, Orson Welles Wolsey, yes. Sam Neill Wolsey, maybe not. Oh, how much am I going to have to drink to get through this night? Oh, I'm going to do a voice for this one. Oh, you're no fun anymore. Now Eric Idle's going to put me under a camel. And they did another one. Here's another fine mess you got me into. Oh God, how much longer do I have to keep smiling and acting like this is attractive? Don't worry, you'll be there for another year and then, you know, head on a block. Henry says something offensive. Catherine, drink your wine, Catherine, just drink your wine, or in my case, drink Vimto. Me telling a story only I find funny, with also me already laughing because I know how it ends. Henry thinks that 6 is about him. Catherine avoids eye contact. And then I put a reply saying, he's so vain, he probably thinks that 6 is about him. Is that how the song goes? Because I don't know. Marry the king, they said. You'll love being queen, they said. Oh yeah, I said I was going to do a voice for this one, but I've never done the voice. Like, I've read it in my mind. I've seen Stephen Colbert do the voice, but I've never ever tried to do the voice in the 5 years that idiot's been relevant. So that's why my balls are so much bigger than the King of France's. If he says otherwise, it's fake news. Henry, hello, I'm a weedy little lizard. Let me introduce you to my perfect wife. Alternatively, Catherine, so we got married. Woo! My dad asking me when I'll have a boyfriend. Me, who is a lesbian, chokes on drink. People actually had to come out to parents who didn't get their gayness. I feel so sorry for them, because when I came out as bi, like, my parents had a bigger reaction to me coming out as atheist than coming out as bi. But I guess I'm one of the lucky ones. When my uncle starts making those sexist jokes, like, what kind of uncles do you guys have? I'm serious. Like, I only have one uncle and I barely see him because he lives in Manchester. Seriously, maybe you don't need a giant family.